We're going to talk about 6 different topics: understanding dementia, the fundamentals of dementia, promoting their dignity, their rights and principles of determination, caring for the elderly with their disability, and communication. Now, there will be a test at the end of the training session, and certificates will be given out if you pass by getting 3 or less wrong. Don't worry, I know you'll be fine. You pay attention. So, understanding dementia. Why are we talking about understanding dementia and doing this training in general? All caregivers, as policy now from the Illinois Department of Public Health, initially need 6 hours of training. Some of you have had that, and 3 hours yearly will need to be done after that. I really want you to think as this is your education. This is how we lift ourselves to being professional. You're being more versatile, and more jobs will be out there for caregivers with this specialized training. We're going to talk about understanding dementia, and really, what is it? Dementia is a broad term. It's an overall term. It includes diseases and conditions characterized by a decline in different types of cognitive aspects: memory, language, problem solving, and other thinking skills that affect a person's ability to perform, and think about this, to perform everyday activities. Memory loss is an example we all pretty much know. But there are many aspects and symptoms that can encompass dementia. Now, Alzheimer's is a disease. It's a disease that involves dementia. It's the most common cause of dementia. It's the most common disease. So there are other types of dementia, and we're not going to go into those today, but if you had a client with different types of dementia, we would talk to you about what could be particular, in adapting the care to that individual. Vascular dementia could be involved. Lewy bodies is another strong disease that carries a lot of dementia aspects of it. Parkinson's disease, you may see this very often, unfortunately, at the end stage of that disease. So think about dementia as being an umbrella term. An umbrella meaning it is an umbrella of symptoms that has many diseases underneath it. And again, if you have a client with this, we would be glad to talk to you about some of the particular symptoms you may see with that specific disease. This is the umbrella, the symptom of dementia, all those aspects we talked about it. And if you look, it just shows the different types of the diseases that can be covered under here. There's going to start a short movie now, and it's specific to Alzheimer's. It was done by the Alzheimer's Association, and they really do a good job of showing the physical changes, the chronic, progressive physical changes that are seen in Alzheimer's disease.
What is Alzheimer's disease? Alzheimer's is a slow, fatal disease of the brain affecting 1 in 10 people over the age of 65. No one is immune. The disease comes on gradually as 2 abnormal protein fragments called plaques and tangles accumulate in the brain and kill brain cells. They start here in the hippocampus, the part of the brain where memories are first formed. Over many years' time, the plaques and tangles slowly destroy the hippocampus and it becomes harder and harder to form new memories. Simple recollections from a few hours or days ago that the rest of us might take for granted are just not there. After that, more plaques and tangles spread into different regions of the brain, killing cells and compromising function wherever they go. This spreading around is what causes the different stages of Alzheimer's. From the hippocampus, the disease spreads here to the region of the brain where language is processed. When that happens, it gets tougher and tougher to find the right word. Next, the disease creeps toward the front of the brain, where logical thought takes place. Very gradually, a person begins to lose the ability to solve problems, grasp concepts, and make plans. Next, the plaques and tangles invade the part of the brain where emotions are regulated. When this happens, the patient gradually loses control over moods and feelings. After that, the disease moves to where the brain makes sense of things it sees, hears, and smells. In this stage, Alzheimer's wreaks havoc on a person's senses and can spark hallucinations. Eventually, the plaques and tangles erase a person's oldest and most precious memories, which are stored here in the back of the brain. Near the end, the disease compromises a person's balance and coordination. And in the very last stage, it destroys the part of the brain that regulates breathing and the heart. The progression from mild forgetting to death is slow and steady, and takes place over an average of 8 to 10 years. It is relentless and, for now, incurable. Helping your family, friends, and neighbors to better understand Alzheimer's will reduce stigma, improve care, and even help the fight for a cure. Thanks for helping to do your part. Learn more at www.aboutalz.org.
Now, when someone's dementia starts or when it progresses, you'll hear a very good piece of advice that they go to their medical doctor first. The reason being is the regular doctor can often do an overall health check, examine the patient, and just see if there's anything else going on that may be mimicking dementia. Doctor will take a look at the medicine the client is on to see if there's anything causing it. Ask about if there's heavy alcohol use. Very often they'll do some blood tests. A lot of times the screening is done to rule out any physical problems. They're also they should do a depression screening. Unfortunately, some of the depression symptoms do mimic dementia. Maybe it's the apathy, it's a personality change. So that's important to do. There should be some cognitive testing done. There's different ways of doing it. There's not just one standard. The important part is a doctor can do what he calls a mini mental test right in the office to start this process. Occasionally, they'll do imaging, like some X-ray or CT scans. Another big part of the first visit is they want to talk to the close people to that patient, the family or a close friend that knows that person well. Now, when they do that interview with the family or the close friend, they're going to ask them questions relating to their memory and their thinking. Questions, does your husband still enjoy woodworking? Does your husband still go out with his friends? Have you noticed any driving changes? Questions that relate to that. Big thing is they're looking for a change. And after all the testing is done for these mini mental tests, they will give a score. And sometimes they'll use it as a baseline, and can be a very good indicator that something is not right. There are some dementia symptoms. So like I said, a mini mental test, there's not one specific standard. You know, it may be starting out, what year is it? What's the date today? Where are you now? I've had some physicians ask their patients to start at 100, count back by 7, so you can start practicing. Sometimes it's just remembering simple objects. You know, he'll say, I'm going to give you a name and an address. I'd like you to repeat that back to me in a couple minutes. I'm going to give you the name of 3 simple objects. Think about that, and I'd like you to repeat back to me. You know, it could be picture, sunshine, car, simple things to check their memory. Some part of the testing involves drawing. A clock, for whatever reason, is very often a standard to check some of their abilities. I like this one. Example 1, example 2, and example 3, if you think of these as people, 3 different people, person number 1, 2, and 3. And if you look here in the top line, this is person number 1. At the bottom, it says baseline. So person number 1, this is the very first one they did. 6 months later, sadly enough, look at the clock on person number 2, and then the big changes 12 months later. Same thing in example number 2 and 3. You know, all of them in the first column definitely may not be the best clock, but they're definitely recognizable. Person number 2 in the middle column, boy, big changes. And look at, you wouldn't even know that's a clock in example number 2, way over on 12 months. Person on the bottom example, example number 3, in my opinion, boy, did he do a great clock. It makes me almost think that they advanced very quickly. Look at, by 12 months, that person, for whatever reason, wasn't even able to draw a clock. You know, the disease progresses at different rates for everyone. We classify dementia now as early stage, middle stage, and end stage. Caregivers may not always come in at that early stage, but I'm sure you've come into contact with people and you've seen some of these, we're going to call them minor problems. Maybe it's word finding. You know, they can't find the exact word. I've seen people use that, you know, the whatchamacallit, or forgetting some common person's names. You know that one, you know, the one that delivers mail. Often symptoms may come out that they're forgetting material they just read. You know, books are harder to concentrate on, losing objects. You know, we may think, oh my God, I'm getting dementia, I'm losing my keys. Well, we are able to backtrack. I'm able to say, did I leave them in my purse? Are they on the counter? Unfortunately, the keys of somebody in dementia might be in the freezer. People start to have trouble planning their day, organizing their schedules, financial matters. And then more advanced symptoms as they move on to middle, you know, more of that forgetfulness, the confusion. Personality symptoms may come out, their moodiness, anxiousness, being withdrawn, especially in social situations, socially, you know, with a lot of stimulation. It's where we may see personality changes, very different, very noticeable from what they had been. This is where a lot of times caregivers will be called to help with care. Incontinence may develop, and they need more help with their basic needs. You know, we call those the activities of daily living, their ADLs. Clothing can be hard. Showering can either be dangerous or they're not taking care of their hygiene. A lot of just the routine planning the day. You know, do they sit in the chair all day? Sleep changes can also occur. Unfortunately, we do know there is going to be a late stage, and very often these are when people need a caregiver 24/7, round the clock care. them being able to communicate is very, very high now. Their physical abilities can tremendously deteriorate. As you know, you're going to be involved in transferring them, helping them to walk, fall risk, safety around the house. Things can progress as far as swallowing problems. Diet will definitely come into play, what they can tolerate, what they will eat. Very end stage dementia can leave them at risk for some of the same problems that somebody's bedbound. Dehydration, pressure sores, contractures, also a very high risk of infections. These people are very prone to catching a pneumonia. It's one of the biggest causes of death with a late stage dementia client. So you're going to see changes in their memory, their language, their judgment, and their behaviors. And like we said, they can vary from person to person or day to day. One of the challenging symptoms we'll talk about, one of them is hoarding. Hoarding is the consistent, continuous behavior of accumulating, keeping, and storing objects that this person truly perceives are necessary for them to keep. So what are some causes that they're hoarding? I'm talking about things maybe like mail, magazines, trash in the house, not able to decipher or want to throw away food in the kitchen. So what are some of the causes of this? They perceive these items, may perceive for them as value to them, and it truly gives them a sense of security. They may know that they're going to forget where they put it or they're losing things, so they like to keep it right out in the open, no matter how much of an amount, a great amount it is. People, as we know, have trouble organizing. What should I shred in this mail? What should I put in a good place? It's very hard to keep things organized. A lot of these items represent a lot of comfort. You're going to see people that don't want to lose sight of their purse. I've seen people latch onto it, latch onto their wallet, look at their jewelry, keep it handy all the time. And that's another issue we're going to have to keep an eye on. They're also frail. They're not as easily able to get up and do the sorting and the cleaning, and it certainly does limit them. We're going to know that if something gets lost, we're going to look in the ordinary places and we're going to help them look at the not so ordinary places. Under the cushions, in the drawer, are there dentures in the wastebasket? Is there food stowed away? Many, many different places that things can turn up that don't really make sense to us. So how do we decide if hoarding poses a safety issue? Is the piles of junk too much that it's a fall risk? Could it become a fire hazard? Or is the food issue getting to a point where it's just not safe and there's expired rotten food around? A lot of the caregivers are going to be the detectives and kind of make a judgment call. We're going to go slow. We're going to be very gentle. We're going to stay positive, not be critical, not do a lot of reasoning on why we're assisting them or pass judgment. Sometimes it might be just as simple as retrieving some of these hidden items when the client is around. I know caregivers that have also taken the blame for a lost item. Oh, look what I found. I might have put it there. I'm sorry. And sometimes you can exchange something valuable with an equal replacement. Let's say there's expired cookies, well, you can toss those. Oh, look at your daughter brought you a brand new box of cookies. You're going to just kind of take a look at each situation and do your best to reassure them and take away some of that anxiety. Maybe the family will have to be told, you'll have to let us know that important documents are getting lost. They may have to take over some of that. Sometimes it's just as simple as getting a box. They don't want to part with their years of magazines. Always going to validate their feelings, meaning, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. I'm sorry you lost this. I know how important this is to you. I'm here. I'm going to help you out. Some other challenging behavior you may run into is hallucinations, delusions, or paranoia. So what are the main differences? They're all uncomfortable, to say the least, for the client, causing them anxiety. They're all challenging to you too as a caregiver. A hallucination is a false sensory experience. Our senses are our taste, our seeing, our hearing, our feeling. So maybe they're hearing people that we know are not there. A delusion is a false belief, something they truly believe is true. Someone is living in the basement. Paranoia. Paranoia is commonly like suspicion. It's a condition that affects their thoughts. Maybe the caregiver is poisoning my food. Maybe that caregiver is stealing my things. So why the heck are they even feeling these horribly anxious thoughts and symptoms for themselves? As the detective, we're going to take a look at their environment, meaning the physical part of where they are. First of all, they may be so socially isolated. Maybe they're in a new routine that's so unfamiliar. The anxiety, the delusions are in the busy doctor's office with all the people. And they definitely also could be at home. But we're going to kind of keep in mind things that are tending to cause them more problem. Sensory overload, a lot of sights and sounds. People with dementia can truly misinterpret what they hear to be something really scary. Something such as poor lighting, that shadow of a tree outside the window can really come across as a person hiding in the dark. The medical part of it is very related to the disease. As dementia progresses, there's definitely a vision loss. Think too, if somebody has low hearing, hard of hearing along with dementia, look at their medicine. Is there anything that's exacerbating these feelings? Also, if it comes on real sudden, it's very severe, people are going to look and see if they're delirious. Delirious is sudden new confusion, and a lot of times that's how people manifest that they're getting sick. We're going to take a look, gee, are they drinking enough? Are they malnourished? So many different factors come into play, and some of it we definitely can play a part in and see if we can bring that anxiety down. And the other part I want you to know, it could be part of the disease. Take a look. We can make sure they got their glasses, they're wearing their hearing aids, and let us know so we can talk to the family. We really want to keep to their routine. Many, many studies have found that people just thrive so much better with dementia when there's a routine. We minimize any change that's in our power to do. We're going to keep an eye on the liquids they drink, keep an eye on giving them a healthy diet. And we're going to try to redirect. That's another term that we use a lot with dementia training. As we get to know that person, say for instance, they're hearing banging in the walls. Very indirectly, simply, maybe we can just put some music on they like. take their attention off of that scary thing and redirect them to something that we know may help calm them. We're going to do a lot of similar things as we do a lot in our care. We're going to listen. We're never going to argue. We're going to validate. I'm sorry you feel that way, or this is hard for you. Now, sundowning is something also very commonly talked about, both with people in facilities, hospitals, at home with their caregivers. It is a symptom of Alzheimer's disease and other dementia. It's known as late in the day confusion. Their confusion, the person with dementia and agitation, may get worse later in the day, the afternoon and the evening. Some people call it the end of the day exhaustion. Think about it. It's the end of a day that was probably physically and mentally hard when you think of what somebody goes through minute by minute throughout their day. It also could be a change in their internal body clock. We all have this internal body clock. Sun rises, sun set, we tend to wake up, or they say it's good to try to wake up at a certain time. Our body knows when it's time to go to sleep. And this definitely changes with dementia. At the end of the day, there's less light, might be increasing shadows. If we're really honest, we want to look at ourselves. I'm sure it's not surprising that caregivers are tired. They're exhausted at the end of the day themselves. We really got to make sure they don't see it. They don't see it in our verbal language. And just as important, they don't see it in our nonverbal language to them. People with dementia and sundowning, they also have difficulty separating some of their dreams from reality. And we all need less sleep as we age. So what can we do for dementia? We can say there's not a black and white answer, but we can say there's many of those reasons that we just talked about. We're going to be calm. We're going to be the detectives. Is there anything they need? Are they anxious for some reason that I can look at? The bedroom's cold, they're getting hungry, those kind of pertinent things, especially if we know their routine. We can gently remind them of the time. We absolutely don't want to argue. You don't even want to reason. You really want to take that word no out of your vocabulary. We're going to do a lot of reassuring. Yes, if they hear a person in the other room, sure, I'll take care of it. It'll be okay, I'll take care of it. Where it says here, no physical restraint, it's not restraining them to the bed. What that means is maybe they had such a quiet day where at the end of the day, if somebody walks, they need to let off some of that. So if it's safe for them to walk, that's probably one of a good ways to let them get off some of that tension. Notice we're using the word calm, empathy, reassurance a lot. The other things you can do and look around with is you're going to make sure the areas that they need to be well lit are lit. We're going to keep to a routine schedule. Going to make sure that sleeping area is warm, good temperature, comfortable. Keep an eye on anything stimulating too, meaning like coffee, tea, nicotine can be a stimulant, alcohol, even television that they watch at the end of the day. Look at the news that's on these days, or violent shows, so anything you can direct them to watch that's less stimulating, stressful, is going to make them sleep better. I think we all know that ourselves. Same thing, we got to turn off our computers and smartphones, they say, at the end of the day. Absolutely, the more active somebody is during the day, the more sunshine they get, the less naps they take. We could say that for all of us, but especially for dementia, it's going to help with them relaxing at the end of the day and sleeping. And really keep in mind how we are. How am I mentally, physically at the end of the day? And how am I showing that to my client? So I know a lot of you are great detectives and you're going to help your clients through this. Thank you.